The last time I saw Arthur alive was 2 days ago. He caught me by the elevator, looking more tired than usual. He was always a little odd. A quiet man, kept to himself. But lately, he'd seemed on edge. Askedi? Been hearing anything strange at night? Footsteps in the hallway, he said, not like someone walking to their apartment, but pacing back and forth, right outside his door. I told him I hadn't noticed anything. The building is old, I said. It makes noises. He just nodded slowly, his eyes wide and unfocused. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I tried to reassure him, told him he was probably just stressed. He was recently retired, and I figured the sudden quiet was getting to him. Loneliness can play tricks on your mind. He just mumbled something about it being different, then shuffled back to his apartment, number 4B. I didn't think much of it. That night, my phone rang. It was almost 2 in the morning. The screen lit up with his name. Arthur, 4B. I groaned. I had to be up in 4 hours. I let it go to voicemail, rolling over and pulling the covers over my head. I was just so tired. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail notification. I ignored that too. I'd call him back in the morning, I thought. He was probably just lonely. Maybe had a little too much to drink. I'd check on him after work. I drifted off to sleep, and the thought of Arthur faded away. The next morning, the hallway was filled with flashing red and blue lights. 2 police officers stood outside Arthur's door, which was ajar. An ambulance was parked on the street below. My heart sank. I approached one of the officers and asked what happened. He was polite, professional. An elderly neighbor hadn't heard from Mr. Davies in a day, got worried, and called for a wellness check. They found him on his living room floor. The officer said it looked like a heart attack. Natural causes, tragic, but not uncommon for a man his age, living alone. He asked if I knew anything, if Arthur had any medical conditions. I shook my head, my mind numb. I just said, he seemed stressed lately. The officer nodded, took my name, and told me they'd be in touch if they needed anything more. The rest of the day was a blur. The image of the open door, the paramedics, the quiet finality of it all. I felt a hollow pit of guilt in my stomach. I should have answered the phone. That night, I couldn't sleep. The silence in my apartment felt heavy, oppressive. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum from the refrigerator sounded amplified. I kept thinking about Arthur, alone in his apartment, clutching his chest. Maybe if I had answered, I could have called for help. Maybe he'd still be alive. Finally, around 3 in the morning, I remembered the voicemail. My hands were trembling as I navigated my phone's menu. I pressed play and held the phone to my ear. Arthur's voice was a ragged whisper. Hello. Are you there? Please, pick up. There was a long pause, filled with the sound of his shaky breathing. I could almost picture him, standing in his dark living room, phone pressed to his ear. I told you, he stammered. The footsteps, they're back. He paused again, but they're not in the hall this time. I hear them, ... in here. My blood ran cold. I heard a faint sound in the background of the message, a soft, rhythmic creak, like an old floorboard taking weight, slowly, once, twice. Arthur's breathing hitched. "He's in here with me," he whispered, his voice cracking with terror. "I can't see him, but I can hear him. He's right behind me." Then another voice. It wasn't Arthur's. It was a low, guttural breath right next to the phone's microphone, a sound that wasn't human. The line went dead. I dropped my phone. I sat there in the dark, my body rigid with fear. The police said natural causes. They said he was alone, but he wasn't. Someone or something was in that room with him. My mind reeled. Who was it? How did they get in? The police report, the natural causes... Was it a lie? A mistake? Or did they just not find what I heard? The creaking floorboard. That breath. I replayed the voicemail again and again and again. Each time, the cold dread seeped deeper into my bones. The police were wrong. Terribly wrong. And I was the only one who knew. The guilt was suffocating. I didn't just ignore a lonely old man's call. I ignored his last desperate plea for help. The following days were a living nightmare. I barely ate. I couldn't sleep. I jumped at every sound. The quiet of the hallway outside my door was no longer comforting. It was menacing. I started taking the stairs instead of the elevator, just to avoid passing his apartment. The yellow police tape was gone, but I could still see the image of his open door in my mind. I thought about going to the police, playing them the voicemail. But what would I say? That my neighbor was haunted. They'd think I was crazy. They'd dismiss it, just like I dismissed him. The thought made me sick. I was trapped with this terrible secret. Then, last night, it happened. It was late, almost 2 a.m. again. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when my phone lit up the dark room. My heart stopped. The screen glowed with the caller ID. Arthur, 4B. For a long moment, I just stared at it, frozen. My mind screamed. It's impossible. It's a glitch, a mistake. His phone line should be disconnected. He's gone. The phone continued its relentless, cheerful ringing. My thumb hovered over the screen. Part of me, a deep, primal part, screamed not to answer. To throw the phone against the wall, to pretend it never happened. But another part, the part drowning in guilt, felt a terrible obligation. This was my penance, my chance to do what I should have done before. With a trembling hand, I accepted the call. I held the phone to my ear, my breath caught in my throat. I didn't say anything. I just listened. At first, there was only static, a low, hissing sound that seemed to crawl right into my brain. I was about to hang up, to chalk it up to a network error, and then I heard it, faintly, through the static. A sound, a soft, rhythmic sound. A creak like an old floorboard, taking weight. Over and over and over. It wasn't coming from the phone anymore. I lowered the phone from my ear. The sound was still there. It was louder now. It was coming from right outside my apartment door. A slow, deliberate pacing, back and forth. And then it stopped. The silence that followed was the most terrifying sound I've ever heard. I'm still sitting here, in the dark. My phone is on the floor. I haven't moved. I'm just listening, waiting. I don't know what's out there, but I know it knows I'm in here. And I think it's waiting for me to open the door.